Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. How you doing? How you doing? All right. Today is Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You know what to do. Let's do this, man. Yeah. Here we go. This week on Fade to Black. Last night, Graham Nichols was here talking and informing us how to induce your own OBE. What a great conversation last night. And tonight, Tony Rodrigues is here, Project Starmaker. And quick comment about tonight's show. And Tony just informed me before this is 9 years in the making. Like for real. And I just had to step back and think about that for a minute. But 9 years. But tonight it's happening. Tony Rodrigues is here. Tomorrow night, Joanne DiMaggio. And the show is called Soulmate or Cellmate. I've had a few of both. All right. So that's tomorrow night. Thursday night, Helena Wabe joins us. We're going to be talking about noetic sciences and ions. What a great week here on Fade to Black. Now, I do have 5 major events coming up. All of these are in 2026 because I've cleared the calendar for 2025 because I am in the middle of production with Beyond Belief, and that happens every single month. So I just need to get my feet on the ground, and figure all of this stuff out. So I've cleared the calendar for 2025, but in 2026, first up is the Conscious Life Expo. And this is February 20th through the 23rd at the LAX Hilton. Right after that, the Contact Modalities Expo. That is May 1st through the 3rd in Delavan, Wisconsin at the resort. After that, Contact in the Desert, May 28th through June 1st. Tickets will be available this Thanksgiving Day. And then right after that, I head to the United Kingdom for the Monty Python tour of Scotland. Very excited about that. That is August 1st through the 9th, 2026. And then I come back from that and turn around and go to Peru and Easter Island with Brian Forrester. That's taking place in November 2026. I don't have the firm dates for that yet, but the links for everything, including Peru and Easter Island, are below. All right, let's get this going. Tonight, Tony Rodrigues is here, and he's going to go through everything tonight. This is the first time Tony has been on the show. And like I had just mentioned, 9 years in the making, 9 years in the making. So we're going to start from the beginning, and we're going to work all through this tonight and what his life has been like and how it got started. It's a crazy story. So yeah, and including going to the moon, allegedly, in 1981. So we're going to talk about all of that. And before I get into the details of his life here, I'm going to let Tony do that as I bring him in right now. There he is, Tony Rodrigues. Tony?
Jimmy, how you doing? Can you hear me?
How you do? We got you loud and clear, brother. We got you loud and clear. Before we get started, Tony, you get the first time guest disclaimer. Also waited 9 years to do this. You know the drill, but we'll go through it anyway. Tony, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. We're already friends, but you have to accept so we can move forward.
Very good. Sounds great.
Is that I accept?
I accept, sir.
You accept. I'm not too sure, Tony, where to start tonight. And I mean, we can go with the linear, time scale and start from the beginning. But I do want to mention this in the interest of transparency, because I just mentioned it. You mentioned it earlier. We've known each other for a long time. We've certainly known of each other for a long time. And we had you scheduled for Fade to Black 9 years ago. Now, without going into details, that got stopped. That got stopped. And we had a couple of conversations about it 9 years ago. But one of the things that I remember us talking about, and again, all of this is in the interest of transparency, where I said, man, this is a crazy world. This is a crazy community. Are you ready for everything? And my memory says to me that you went, yeah, okay, I got it. And I said, I don't think you do, right? I don't think you do. Going past the last 9 years to that conversation, I wasn't wrong, was I?
Man, I don't know. You're right. I wasn't ready for what was about to happen to me for the way that things turned out since going public and speaking about what happened. One thing that's fortunate though is back then, like you said, it got canceled. There were doubts. It was early on, and I was under heavy attack in the early days. Like I came out with I answered what people asked. There were emails that said out there from other shows that if you suspect you've been involved, write us an email, let us know. So I answered. I said, yeah, I think I've been involved. I've been through that. And I got heavily attacked by people that were already talking about it. It was a broad spectrum of people that were like, whatever, there's no way, this dude, screw him. And whatever, I weathered it, but here I am. It's 10 years since I got my memories back and started researching what happened. And time has validated many of the things that I remembered back then. And so I'm still here talking about it, and a lot of people aren't still standing from it. And there's a lot of new people that have come out with this. I'm not the only one saying that I've experienced what I have in being taken for 20 years and being immediately put back in 1982 and working in these programs and on places on Earth and in space. And I got the memories back in 2015 of the whole incident and started researching it and trying to figure out what in the heck happened to me. You know what I mean? Like I was just as shocked as anybody. And I researched it, and I'm still, to this day, even recently, still turning up evidence. So there have been many points of evidence that have supported my memories, the things that I remember that I couldn't have known. There's just no way I could have known it. And so I'm talking about it, and I've been busy and meeting people like you, Jimmy, and talking on shows and rubbing elbows with other experiencers has opened up a lot of doors for me to unpack and reverse engineer the technologies that I was exposed to. And just it's became a career for me. I was a wood floor refinisher for like 30 years. I'm a normal standard dude from the Midwest, got my memories back and started looking to prove it. And in the journey down the road of trying to research and because I would never come on your show or any other show and say these things that are very unbelievable if I didn't have proof to myself first and foremost, so
I don't know how
here we are.
Yeah. I don't know how good your chops are with flooring, but I have a big house and I'm thinking about refinishing the floors. Are you down?
I'm down, man. Hey, I'm in
couple weekends, some beer.
It sounds great, honestly. And I've done that whole dance before. It's like won't be my first rodeo in that deal.
I keep
totally down, man. I'll come help you out.
I keep looking at my floor. I don't mind doing stuff. I like putting on a tool belt and things. I keep looking at these floors going, oh man. And it just seems like it's too big to tackle. But
It's a big
yeah,
job.
it is. It's a big job. Um, Technically, I just have my living room and my dining room that need to be done. Everything. No, and now the family room too. So 3 rooms. 3 rooms. All
Very
right.
cool.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that later. I'm serious though. I walked through there going, you know what? This needs to get done. I don't. They're wood floors. They're beautiful.
That's what
And
I
I
did.
don't. Yeah, I don't want to replace them. I just want to refinish them. I mean, they're
That's
too
the way to
nice.
go.
They're too
So
nice.
that's what I did. I had a nice. I raised my daughters. I was married for 23 years. I raised 3 daughters. I was a flooring guy. I lived a normal life, and then I got an MRI scan of my head, and about 10 days later, coincidentally saw the Randy Kramer interview that explained it, and a bunch of memories that didn't make sense that I had all along. All of a sudden, I went, "Oh God, that's what they did. They kept me." And the rest of the memories came once there was a file created where the memories could unfold. They did. And I remembered 20 years of being taken when I was 10 years old and being in black programs and the space program, being into space to the moon, to Mars, and living about 12 years, better than a decade, on a planetoid Ceres that's in between Mars and the asteroid belt, a little dwarf planet. And they put me back. They put me back the next day.
We'll get into all of that. Maybe after tonight's show, somebody is going to suggest another MRI. But yeah, but I will say this. Although we've known each other and of each other for a long time, we finally got a chance to hang out, and we did for like 3 or 4 days, if I remember correctly, and we had a great time.
Yeah.
And I remember walking away from the first day where you and I had like hung out all day, and I went, man, Tony's pretty grounded. I don't know what I was expecting, right? But very we just had a great time, and I just walked away from that, and we've stayed in touch since then, and have talked a lot. But yeah. So I just wanted to share that not only with you,
Thanks.
because I never told you, but also with the audience as well. All right. So the memories come flooding back. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go before the beginning, actually. In your early childhood, and I ask this of every guest that I have on the show, and it doesn't really matter what the subject is about. I do want to know, and I compare it to my own life. Growing up, did you have an interest in ET or the UFOs? Did you have any family members that were crazy, or a crazy uncle, or anything like that? Any experiences before things started to kick off?
My mom was like heavy into Star Trek, and she was a Christian woman, but she was heavily into sci-fi and Star Trek and ghosts story, paranormal. And so I was into sci-fi for that reason before it happened, before the abduction happened. Yeah, I was totally into, it was like Star Wars was in 77. And, that was like a golden era, at the late 70s, early 80s in sci-fi, where they really put their heart and soul into writing the stories, because they didn't have a lot of special effects to fall back on like they do now. And so, yeah, I was into sci-fi and all that stuff. I believed in aliens. It only makes sense. I think as soon as they taught me in school how many stars there were, it was pretty obvious that there were ETs up there. Anybody that can't draw that conclusion, I mean, you really have to run far to get away from that conclusion. As soon as you realize there are billions and billions and billions of stars, so that means there's life somewhere.
Okay, you remember my presentation that I did at the conference, and that was one of the things that I mentioned, which is this: we can look up and see stars, right? But we always wondered, I wonder if there is, somebody looking back at me right now. That's not an original thought. Everybody has had that thought, right? I'm not planting a flag here like this is, some original thing. But, looking up, just wondering if ET was looking up at the stars at the same time that we are here. But what we didn't know then, which we know today, is every star in the universe, which includes every star in the sky in your backyard, has at least one planet. Every single. Now we get into crazy town, don't we? I don't know how much life is out there, but every star has a planet, and there's a trillion in our Milky Way, and there are trillions of Milky Ways, right? It's beyond our comprehension and ability to understand, isn't it?
So look, I want to skip to the space service. When I was an engineer on a ship doing interstellar trade missions, I want to tell you, I had a conversation. We had the schedule altered one day. An officer came down and told me, we're not going to this pickup. We're staying at this one. And I said, but the pickup's the first time. We'd never been there before. So we treated those with a little bit more decorum. We got ready. You know what I mean? Like there was like a sample package that we would offload when we went to new systems to trade with, like a sampler. And so, the guys in the cargo bay, we had to be, have our act together when we did that. And I said, well, what about, it's our first one. What if they get mad and they don't have us back? And the officer said to me, he said, if there were 1 million ships like ours, or I forget the number, 1,000, 10,000 ships like ours, more, and they each did missions every day for the next 10,000 years, we wouldn't make a scratch in the list that's available to trade with. So it's no big deal if we burn a bridge, because there's a trillion bridges of different species that are willing. There's like a bulletin board system in space stations that are, out in the solar system. And in a lot of systems. And so ETs can list that they're available to trade for technology. It's like a trade system. And so they would go to that bulletin board and put out messages across space and get invited to go trade with them. That's how it works. And
that's exact. And that would be, in my mind's eye, that would have to be the way it is. The amount of life out there, I often use the word infinite, like infinite amounts of life. Well, infinite is a pretty damn big number, but that we don't have another way to look at it. It's the universe is that expansive. When somebody mentions, and we need to go back to the beginning, but I love the conversation.
I know.
Yeah. Which is this? We all see different researchers, and no slight on anybody because we're all trying to figure this out. But we see this list of 77 races visiting Earth, or 60 races visiting Earth. There's 5 visiting, and I go, no, it's got to be a crazy big number. Earth has been habitable for 2 billion years. All right, 2 billion. How many intelligent species of extraterrestrials have visited this planet in 2 billion years, or in the last 100 years? I would say that number is huge. It's not 77 races. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be in the tens of thousands or bigger. That's my take.
So we've been programmed by media, by pop culture, and by sci-fi to think that to fly to the star in the galaxy takes months and months and months, and 6 months, and you got to live on the ship and have, you know what I mean? Like everything, and it's rockets. It's always rockets. But the reality is that these species, once they get to a level, and even humans have, like our government has got to this level of technology. They can instantly go a third of the distance across the galaxy, and then instantly wait a minute, recharge, and do it again, and then come home. So we can go to any of billions of systems and be home for dinner. So it's instant, and they can come here. So any of those billions of systems can come here, and they have different technology. So the local ETs, the local group, and the human military group, the human space programs, police it as best they can, but they've only got a level of technology. And so there are species that come into our solar system that we don't even know that they're here because they're very advanced technologically. They can pop in. And so after I went public, you know, when I do a show like this, I see my name's my website. Whenever I do a YouTube show, big or small, people contact me and they go, man, I never heard of that before. And I think it happened to me. And can I talk to you? I'll get emails. And at first I just help people out. It was, you know, I was doing my 9 to 5 and I was like, because I knew what it was like to not have somebody to talk to. And it really blows my mind. Others like me that don't work with people. It's really a red flag because so many people seek me out. But I've categorized, I mean, it's been a few thousand people, coming up on 3,000 people in 10 years that I've done one-on-ones and like worked out a timeline and, you know, tell me what happened kind of thing. Just been an ear for them to listen, for them to speak to, that's not going to call them crazy, that understands it. And I found that I put everybody in 3 categories. The first category is human, earthbound space programs. Those people get abducted and run and work in one of those. And then the local group, our local actors, the Greys, the reptiles, the Nordics, the locals, you know what I mean? The local area, and they abduct people. It's the same series of events keeps happening. And then there's a third category that is radically all over the map where they get abducted and they're kind. They get abducted and they're invisible and they can walk through their house. Like they see the space and they fix them. They have all these different strange things. And that's the everybody else category that's not doing business with the local group, not doing business with, they're just popping in for whatever they need. And they come down. It's usually a positive interaction, but it is real. So, and then you see when everybody gets abducted by the military, it's a military experience. They have those memories and it lines up with a lot of other things in their life. And so that's got to be the case out there, that any of billions or trillions of species can just breeze through our solar system and go, hey, check this out. This planet's got people. Let's go have a peek. And there's nothing the locals can do about it, you know, because there's a different levels of technology and consciousness that are all over the place. We're not the top of the food chain. The food chain, the intelligence chain, if that is a chain, is much, much taller than we've been led to believe.
It has to be. If I look at you and I look at me, we are as trailer park can be. Right?
I'll you know what? I'll run with that. I don't have any problem with that.
I mean, so geez, you know, and we can have an imagination from looking at science and physics and what all of this can presuppose and suppose and have ideas about this and look at that. But no matter how far we let our imagination go when it comes to physics and what is possible, it ain't even close to the reality of something that is 1,000 or 1,000,000 years ahead of us in technology and evolution. It can't be. We just don't have a clue, do we?
No, we don't. And you know what? The effect of consciousness is, and I believe, in my opinion, deleted from science. I think that our consciousness, that things are conscious, you know, the bugs, animals, plants, people, and so on are conscious. And I think that consciousness makes up a huge part of reality that our science doesn't give any credit to. And that's why it doesn't. And I think it's on purpose. I think it hides a lot of real technology is consciousness. And the thing in my work, what led me to finding evidence of my abduction was the Involuntary. The first stop was in remote viewing research. And when I started peeling back the onion of that and getting the budget inquiries and the declassified documents, it seems like a lot of the government is really running with consciousness technology, consciousness enhancing peripherals. We've had the Gateway document, really was like what caught like wildfire in the internet a few years ago, and it really kind of showed what they were doing. But when you look into the remote viewing, the subcontinent dream warfare government remote viewing, corporations are doing remote viewing on a high level every day. Today, remote viewers came home from their 8-hour shift for some corporation, and they will go to work tomorrow. And it's all over the place, the military, everything. And the level of technology based on consciousness or the understanding of consciousness is very high, and it's very hidden from us.
What do you make of I3 Atlas? You know, and we have, I want your full thought on this, but just one quick comment. When you have Avi Loeb, who I know, who's a friend, and we've done a lot of things together over the years, Avi's a very smart guy, and his comment is repeated a lot, which is, I only open my mouth after I analyze the data. I'm a data-driven guy. I'm not here to fantasize or consider. You can't sit down and talk to Avi Loeb about reptilians. He doesn't.
I would
give a
imagine.
shit. Yeah, he doesn't care. Now, if there's data that comes at him about then that's a different conversation. But everything that he says is data-driven. And right now, he's making some pretty out there comments about I3 Atlas and October 29th, October 30th, when it pops out from behind the sun and everything, we will know a lot more. And his answer to that is October 30th, I get to collect more data. I'll have more stuff to say at that time. What do you make of I3 Atlas?
I don't have a lot of data on it myself other than what I hear. It's one of the very few objects from outside our solar system, the third object.
Third.
Well, that we've discovered,
confirmed. Yeah, confirmed.
And so it's,
or that the public knows about. Let's just go that. I'm going to go that far.
Well, I understand they've been looking for them for a long time, and they've only seen these that have been fairly recent. So that's also something. There's a trend here. So that's a piece of data. But I don't have a. It could be a rock. It could be a derelict craft. It could be somebody with their cloaking shield turned off so we can see them finally. Who knows? The astronomy guys, like you said, when it comes from around the sun, they'll have some good info. And then you and I both know that if it's real info, you know, the apparatus to hide it from guys like Avi exists. You know, like even so, I was part of the amateur astronomy in Hawaii when I lived there for a while, and we would tour the Pan stars and the Eos telescope, these high-tech telescopes. And somebody raised his hand and said, "What about this telescope can see the whole sky all at once, all night long? What about a classified satellite?" And the guy started laughing. He said, "I wish you wouldn't have asked that." And so the room was like silent, right? And he said, "You guys might not know this, but it's a gigapixel camera on the telescope, but it goes through the Air Force software. It's the United States Air Force that it writes all the software for these telescopes that are granted off military money and college money that built them, and it can delete any object it wants out of so the operator doesn't even see it. And so data can't be trusted. Science is flawed in that regard, that science doesn't want to acknowledge national security deleting or tampering with science's data. And so we have to always have that in our mind, that national security trumps everything, and we don't have the whole picture. No, you know, and it's ran amok.
Well, that's pretty interesting about the software. But with the land-based, a terrestrial-based telescope of that size, going through Pentagon software, that makes sense. But here's the problem that the Pentagon or anybody else, you have to mute your phone, and you're going to be doing that now. Yeah, is you can't stop amateur astronomers. When you have a physical object that's coming in, I have a nice telescope. I do. I've got a nice setup, and there are plenty of astronomers out there, amateur, that have the ability to look into deep space. And
this is a beautiful point.
Yeah, and you can't control that. So if something comes in that is physical, like I3 Atlas, you can't get into the points of deception because you're going to get caught.
That's exactly right. And I think that's why we're on a timeline for a disclosure of the space programs and of extraterrestrial life. Like everybody is on the same page because so you have a nice setup. I had a 12-inch, I had an 8-inch scope. I was heavy into astronomy when I was on Maui because it's a really good observing point. And
Right.
obviously I have memories of space. So I was always had a great interest in it. But some of these, the telescopes that I'm talking about are, 4 meters.
Yeah, for real. I have
So
I have a 10-inch bucket, and it's pretty solid if you keep it stable, right? Because of the way it sucks in starlight. And a bucket for everybody. I don't want to get into details.
light
Don't waste
bucket.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a light bucket. Dude, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing, and I really enjoy. But here's the part with it. I want to see some crazy shit, Tony, with my telescope. I haven't yet. I've stared at the moon. I have stared at the moon.
Well, maybe Jimmy, maybe want to come over and help you with your floor. We have some good viewing, and we'll
sure. Well, I'm out here in the desert, man, and I've got no light pollution. I've got the Milky Way just stretched across, and now I see stuff all the time, but I haven't seen anything crazy with my telescope yet.
So I was in line to help out with a I don't want to say military scope, like a civilianly funded, like a funded scope in Hawaii. I want to tell the story of the Planets Telescope. It's an acronym, the Planets, P.L.A.
Right.
It was going to be, I think, 3 meters. It was and it was something called so I was because all my years of refinishing and fine sanding stuff, I was going to be help sand polish the mirror. They were going to ship it to Hawaii, and we were going to build a machine that would sand it, and I'd sit there and for hourly wage and throw dust in the thing so it could grind it. I was so stoked about that. So this was a off-axis paraboloid. So the secondary mirror wasn't directly in front of it. It was off to the side, so there'd be no absolutely no diffraction. So they could hook something
distortion. Oh man.
They could hook something up called a polarized spectrometer to it. And they could, because now they have exoplanets, and they could watch a planet go in front of the star and get a read on the makeup of its atmosphere.
Right.
With a telescope, with an off-axis paraboloid. So this is a scope. I forget, $8 or $10 million dollar project, $10 million bucks. And they were going to turn this on and within 6 weeks discover life or not. They said, we'll get an answer, yes or no, if there's life out there within 6 weeks. We have enough targets. We have the math, the probability. We can turn this thing on. The spectrometer only works without the spider in the light beam. So it needs to be an off-axis paraboloid. So somebody came and bought the mirror out, and the whole project got shut down, got shelved. They said, no, we'll do it on the James Webb. And they put it on the shelf. So $10 million could have answered the question once and for all within 6 weeks of turning it on. Life out there. And somebody came and bought it and shut it down and said, we'll replace it with a better telescope, the James Webb, which also is hooked into the Pentagon software.
Yeah. I know a few, more than a handful of researchers, astronomers from different countries that are part of James Webb. I ask them all the same question. Okay, man. So what's going on, man? What's going on with rapids? What's going on? And they do you fear a contact type of situation where you guys find something and James Woods shows up with his buddies, right? And shut the things down. And they told me, everybody's had the same answer. Maybe they're reading from the same page of the playbook, but all of them said, we're international. There's no way this isn't controlled by the United States. And if anything like that happened, our funding would go through the roof. We want that to happen, and we will share it with the world without running into interference. Now, but they all said the exact same thing. So it almost feels like they were briefed on how to approach that.
For sure.
Or maybe they're telling the truth too.
Well, Look, I also want to backpedal a little bit. Like, I'm not trying to cast any shadow on the James Webb Telescope. It's an amazing thing. It's amazing, and there are other better telescopes that are in the pipe, that are going to be built. Even Earthbound ones. They're talking about a giga telescope. That's some ridiculous size. They have the technology's gotten so much better. So the James Webb's a great project, but we have to concede. All science has to concede that they are beholden to the military influence of every nation, that the military arm branch of every government has authority over the scientific branch of every single government on Earth. And it's like they just conveniently never want to admit that, but it's so true. Once you allow for that, then all of a sudden the things that I'm telling you and the things that so many other people are telling us about UFOs, about working in space, start to make sense. It's a data point. So you know what I mean? Like, it sounds crazy, the reptilians, but I've got data points I could give Avi. You know what I mean? Like, I've been at this for a long time, and a significant amount of my life has been just researching my own memories that have panned out. And it's like, there's all kinds of my own data points supporting this. And when you look at the military influence, national security, what's happening in science, then all of a sudden I don't sound so crazy.
I'm going to share this with you. I've said it maybe once or twice before, but Avi and I talked on the phone one day for a length of time about something. It doesn't matter. But it was that night or the next night. I went out after the show, and I'm on my top deck in the back. I've got my night vision. It's my favorite thing to do after the shows. Go sit on the top deck, look at the sky, have a smoke, and just kind of relax and unwind after the show. So I'm there, and I look I'm just looking, right? But I turn, and I'm looking to the north, and I happen to be at the right spot at the right time when this happened. All right. From the horizon, from the north, this light came up over the horizon, went over my head, and back over the horizon behind me in about a second, maybe a second and a half. It wasn't 2 seconds. Now, went past planet Earth, right? Okay. It wasn't in our atmosphere. It just like this fast. And I followed. It's like, holy crap. What was that? Right? All right. And it was just a white ball. And as I'm standing there contemplating what I just saw, it happened again. Just 20 seconds later. Gone. Holy crap. So now I'm on my phone. I'm texting Avi. The time I'm looking at from the north, this, and then I run in the house and I shoot him this long email. Now that was a text, and then I shoot him along. It has to have been observed. There was not one, there was two, and please get back to me. So he wrote me the next day. He said, I contacted every observatory. Nobody saw anything. And I pick up the phone and go, Avi, bullshit. There's no way that we did not see that. It happened twice. He said, Jimmy, nobody. I had everybody checked. I gave him the time and everything that you said to me. Nobody saw anything. I believe what Avi's saying. I believe that that's what he was told. Okay. All right. Fair enough. But there's no way that wasn't seen.
And the observatory, and it's fair to say that all of the night sky is being observed 24/7. You know what I mean? Like right now, there's a telescope on somewhere where it's dark, looking at the entire night sky on that part of the world. And there are satellites in space that are looking at the sky on the light side of the world. Like all of the sky is being monitored, but they are all being monitored through software and not eyeballs, like you were saying. How you said amateur astronomers can put their eyeballs on, look at the telescope physically. There's no digital interference. It's a raw image with they're looking through glass and a mirror. And but most of the sky is unseen in that regard. The rest of it is seen with software, and the people that design the software can delete at will.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, we have to,
and the guys in the observatories know it, and they don't want to talk about it.
It's a funding environment, man.
That's right.
It's a funding environment. One of the most treacherous waters out there is the astronomy funding game. To set up a telescope in Chile, right? These monstrosities, right? These technically, when you see the videos and the documentaries of them assembling these things, I can't wrap my head around the engineering team that designs that. The wiring, these are as complex. It's as complex as CERN. It's like that. I mean, it's crazy. And so the funding that goes into that, to building a telescope on the top of a mountain in Chile or Argentina or anywhere, you need that funding, and you're not going to say stupid shit. You're not. That funding.
Amen to that.
Very serious. Yeah, I'm being very, very, very serious. You don't want to be the astronomer on that team that got funding disrupted because you started talking about mantids. Right.
This whole conversation is an excellent point to drive home. That when science asks the question, if there was all these UFOs and all these extraterrestrials going on moon bases, we'd see it. We would know. And the thing is, that's kind of a dirty little secret, that most of the things we're looking with can be edited or censored, unbeknownst to even the operator or to the scientists. That, they don't have to tell these guys that their software is doing it. But like I said, the Air Force writes the software for, I don't want to name names on telescopes and it's been years since I was there hanging out with those guys. I did it as an amateur astronomer. And the other thing is, I always recommend to people, I get into discussions. Some people get heated when they talk about properties of the world that are not true, that you can easily discover with astronomy. I tell people, I'm like, dude, go to a local telescope. Most towns have one, a school or university or somewhere, that has a scope nearby, and go on the public night, take a date. It's a great date to take a girl to, or you're somebody else if you're a girl, because it's quiet, it's cerebral, it's beautiful and peaceful, and it's like you'll learn a lot. Just look, more people would benefit if they knew about astronomy. So, and I say it quite a bit, because it would solve a lot. We may all get a big astronomy lesson here in the near future, the way things are shaping up.
Yeah, I know. I feel that it seems very tangible at the moment, that there's something. When I first read Arthur C. Clarke's Rama series, right? Rama, the Gardens of Rama, and so forth. And I read that series of books, especially the first one, which set the stage, which was very eerily similar to I3 Atlas and what we are experiencing right now, and how it started and how it was tracked and what it turned out to be. Very strange. But when I read the books, I was like, man, it feels like this is how it could go down. And that was me getting my feet wet. And I think that the rest of the world is starting to get their feet wet too. I really do. I feel that way.
There's a lot of shows that starts out that way. They track an object coming in, and then it turns out to be the mothership, and it makes contact. And it's always a boogeyman, E.T. It would be nice if it just happened that easily. Many people from many different families of ufology and from the research have theorized or put their eggs in the basket that contact can happen many different ways, and most of them disastrously. And so
Well,
I
look
got
at
to think that there's great ways, peaceful ways for contact to happen. And I think I personally know of people that are talking about contact or disclosure in the near future. And there are some very peaceful scenarios that are being talked about. So I'm going to leave it at
well,
that.
you know, we have the movie Arrival, which is one of my favorite films, and I like the way that contact was handled there. And then we have Three Body Problem, right? And it's Three Body Problem, the TV series, and compare the two of those. I can't wait for the next season of Three Body Problem to come out. Talk about ending on a cliffhanger. All right, let's back up. We can stay right where we are, or I want to touch upon a few things. And so my first question to start off the night was, did you have any crazy family members, right? And everything like I did, to help you along in your journey to kind of prep you. But your first, let's go to what you've termed an involuntary recruitment. How old were you? What happened?
I was 10 years old. I was in third grade. Fourth grade. It was third grade when I took it. Anyhow, I was 10 years old. It was 1982. And I was going to school with a kid who I was going to a school in rural Michigan, like out in the cornfields. And a kid was drove in from the next town on a limousine and said, "My dad's an Illuminati. What's your dad do?" I was in the talented and gifted program with him, and he was very arrogant and he was very smart. And so I was intimidated by him and I picked on him. And so he hated me, and "My dad's an Illuminati. What's your dad do?" I remember that it stuck out. That's a memory and his dad came in and judged the science fair in April, right after Easter. And it was a Wednesday. We set up our exhibits, and he said, "Dad, that's that boy I told you about." And that was on a Wednesday. I went back to the school records. I cross-examined him with the weather report, because I remember in my book, there's a picture of me out in the rain puddles playing. And that was Saturday, April 17th, 1982. My dad took the picture. And I went back and reconstructed the whole series of events back there. It took me years of poking around, and it all matched up the way I remembered it. And Wednesday, he said, "Dad, that's that boy I told you about." And on Thursday night, I had a gray ET in my bedroom with a couple short reptilian ETs that picked me up, paralyzed me, picked me up, carried me to the end of my bed. There was a flash of light, and I was all of a sudden in a laboratory, naked on a stainless steel table with them poking me and taking tests. And his exact words after a conversation, I was scared at first. They did something.
You were conscious?
Yeah. Well, I woke up. I lost when they took me out. Like there was a flash at the end of the bed. They carried me, and I was like paralyzed. I could move my eyes, but I couldn't move the rest of me. And there was a flash of light, and I lost consciousness. And I woke up, like I said, without my clothes, on a stainless steel table, sitting there in a round gray room with a couple of grays and a reptilian standing there. And it was dark, and I was, terrified. And they said, "You're fine. We're not going to do anything to hurt you. You're not going to kill you or nothing." They said they weren't going to hurt me. And I said, "I knew you guys were real." I was like stoked all of a sudden. I thought that the next day that I went and looked on the TV, they said, "We're going to put you back." I thought when I looked on the TV that the aliens would be real, that it would be a disclosure. I thought it was like they landed and they got me. I thought it was brand new. At the time, that's what was going through my mind. And he said, "We want to borrow your consciousness for 20 years. We need your help." That's it. They had to get my permission. The gray told the reptilian, "Ask him for his permission." And he said, we want you to help us. You want to help us?" And I was like, "What? Do what?" And he said, "We want to borrow," that's the exact words, "we want to borrow your consciousness for 20 years. And I said, I can't do that. My mom will grow up. My mom and my sister will grow up. I won't know my family." He's like, No, we have time travel where you're going to come right back the next day. We're going to put you back. You're going to get the most valuable thing you can get is more time on your life. You're going to live 20 years longer than you would have. And we want you to help us. You'll work for us." And I was like, "Well, what am I going to do? What job?" And he said, We'll test you and find what job you're best at, and that's what you'll do. And so I concur with one of the whistleblowers. I'm not going to name names on your show. I concur that it was called the Career Return Program. So they made it sound appealing. The Career Return Program. And I said, I'll get a career. And then that was it. They did a surgery on me. They laid me back on the table and did a surgery. And I woke up in Inyo, California on the tail end of Project Grill Flame for the Army INSCOM. And that was my first stop. And 20 years began. I had no memory of who I was. And I went from that program to a short week or two in Seattle for somebody that privately owned me, and then off to Peru. And I lived in Peru. I did remote viewing they would give me drugs, and I could do remote viewing they were running drugs. They were literally cocaine runners from a town in Peru to Colombia. And I was like their early warning system. I was like a psychic, a remote viewer. And that went on for 2 years. I lost the ability. They sent me back to Seattle, and I was there for 2 summers. And they were giving me like a cocktail of pills to take every day, and they changed the formula, and I was allergic to it. And they said, well, if you can't be here anymore, then we'll sell you to the military. And by military,
hold on for a second.
I'm preaching on, Jimmy.
Yeah. Let's pump the brakes for a second. Just a quick question. So this started 11, 12 years old. When
10.
You're 10, but that has nothing to do with the question. Hold on. What I'm saying is, were you a 10-year-old doing this stuff? You go to Peru, you're now 12, you're there for 2 years, you're 12,
Yep.
13 years old. So that's my question, right?
That's exactly right. I lived those years doing that service. I was 10 years old in the program, and so were the other kids.
Okay,
there were about a dozen other kids in the program as well, about the same age. Yep. Okay.
What happens next?
I just want to insert this, that in my research, I found a paper from 79, I believe, 1979, saying that they had discovered the Chinese had effective results with remote viewers using children. And the United States was researching this, and they thought we were clones. They said we were clones. And who knows? Probably that's part of the tech. Long story, but they were trying to match the research of other countries in remote viewing and psychoenergetics. But fast forward, they sold me to the military, and I woke up on she took me to a box store, back then. So I was in Seattle at the time, one of the islands near Seattle. She took me down the ferry. We went to a box store to the back where the garbage dumpsters were. There were 2 guys in a van. They gave me a shot in the arm. I lost consciousness, and I woke up on a military transport to the back of the moon. So I gained consciousness. There was a guy, he said, I'm your chaperone. There's a guy in a military uniform. He said, if you're going to puke, there's a bag right there in the seat. You're going to be good for me, right? And I was like, of course. And that was my recruitment into the secret space program, into one of them.
Okay. Kate Chase is in the chat. She's amazing. She asked a pretty good question here. What body was he in if they just took his consciousness? And that's a great question, because you said earlier that they said we're gonna borrow
it was me. So it had to be a clone. So I can't say it definitely that they cloned me and moved my consciousness over. I'm putting together, looking back on it with my details. But if you go in and get heart surgery, and they ask you what happened, you don't know. You can put it together. Well, they put me under, and I feel sore. So I'm trying to deduce the process from having it happen. So my main theory is that they cloned me, because when I woke up in Inyo, I had no memory of mom or dad or growing up in Michigan. And at the end of it, when they put me back, I lost the memories of the 20 years, and I got my memories back, as if they put me back in the original body. And in my time and space, when I looked in the mirror, it was me. So I have black hair and green eyes. And so once in a while, somebody will say, wow, look at your eyes are green. That's great. That's so rare. And it was the same thing in my time and space. I was getting the same remarks from everybody about my eyes. I looked exactly the same. So it was a clone body. Also, I was badly injured in space on 2 occasions, and they were able to fix it. And I wonder if they just moved my consciousness into another body, because in Inyokern, I had my shoulder dislocated and on one occasion, and later on when I was in Seattle, when I'd sleep wrong, it would dislocate. I got in a combat situation on Mars and was injured, and when they fixed me, it never dislocated again. So it was like they gave me a whole new body. Again, I was put under, so I didn't witness it. I wasn't briefed about it. I didn't have rank. They would do things to me and not tell me anything about it. And but when I look back on it, it seems like that was part of the technology. So the ability to take you out of your body and put you in a cloned body, and that's where you're awake, your awareness, right? So you're awake in this one, and the other one's just there sleeping, and they can pull you out of that, put it, and then that one wakes up, and this one goes to sleep. It's something like that.
Have you? We're going to take a break here.
Oh, that was quick.
In just a minute. Yeah, I know, right? Have you bumped into anybody that you were actually with? Or another way to ask this question is, do you remember anybody that you were with, and have you tried to seek them out?
Yes, and I've had people seek me out. There's probably been 5 or 6 people throughout the years of me talking publicly that have contacted me, and that I've found there's a weird phenomenon around it. I've even talked to people that have all their memories back, Jimmy. So people that fully are conscious, and they talk to me like, Tony, you're real. I know you're real, and I was here and I did this, but they don't want to speak publicly about it. They got a paycheck. They'll have to pay it back if they go public. But I've spoken to people like that, and they said that there's a real phenomenon where people up there that go into the space program as clones or in these other bodies and go up and meet each other and fall in love with, people that end up as couples up there, or people that work together for many years up there. They come back here, and even if they don't have memory, they bump into each other. Even though they're on different parts of the world, they somehow subconsciously seek each other out. That's a phenomenon they haven't explained. And I've had people that were in the program that are conscious, that have all their memories, explain that to me. And it's happened to me. It's like I said, about 5 or 6 people. One guy emailed me and he said, I remember you, and that was messed up what you did. I'm still mad. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then he proceeded to describe an incident that only somebody that was there could know. I had never spoken about it, and I had very clear memory, and he had the exact same memories, and described it exactly how it was. And so we became friends, and he flirted with talking publicly about his experiences, but he was immediately attacked by his friends and family, so he walked away from it. It's not easy,
Is it possible, we're going to head to a break, is it possible, this is not a leading question, is it possible that these experiences and memories were just implanted?
Anything's possible, man. And so I always preface it with, look, I'm telling you like I said, I don't know if I was cloned or age regressed like some people postulate is possible. I don't know, but I'm telling you what it's like for me to experience it, because I was unconscious for many procedures. And so I'm the first to admit, like, I'm open to another version of events that makes more sense. But giving me fake memories doesn't make any sense, because I was a little kid from a small town in Michigan. I grew up to be a wood floor refinisher. So why wouldn't you do this to a politician or somebody in Hollywood? Why would you do this to a 10-year-old kid? And then me carry the PTSD, and then me figure out all this stuff after the fact and go searching in 2023, years later, I go to Inyokern and then find the building. You know what I mean? Like, I question the motive of that theory. That's the thing. I'm not saying it's not possible. I don't think it's likely. In my perspective, I don't think that's what happened. And I sure would think that, it's kind of like how they say space is fake, or the moon landing was fake. It was like, it's easier to just go to the moon than to fake it. It was easier to just fly to the moon than pull off the faking it. So, a lot of people deduce that. And I feel the same way. It'd be easier for it all to just be true rather than put these memories in my brain, because I'm still living my normal life. And the other thing is, the technology that I remember works still. So I've been pulling stuff apart. I've been reverse engineering stuff, the remote viewing, the psychoenergetics. There's declassified, there's stuff that's still classified in the remote viewing realm that works and that I know still. So why would they give me classified information and then let me run loose in southern Michigan? Like, you know, get what I'm saying? Like, there's a why that needs to be answered with that. But I don't. It's not a rock I'll die on, man, because I experienced something, and you know, I'm trying to sort it out, same as anybody.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Tony Rodrigues, is here. It's going to be a continued amazing conversation tonight. We're going to take a quick break. More with Tony when we come back. Tony, stay right there. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Jimmy Church, Gaia TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forster and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Come join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Tony Rodrigues is with us. A show that is 9 years in the making. But we're doing it tonight. Tony, you called me. Oh, you're muted. Unmute yourself. Okay. You called me 9 years ago, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, and you gave me a word, like a code, a word that only you had told me that only somebody that has gone through your experiences would know. I'm not going to say the word or if I even remember, but I'm not going to do that. But have you used that with somebody that has reached out to you and then you called bullshit?
So I don't like to call bullshit. The thing is, I realize that it's a big enough thing out there. Like, I was a cargo engineer. I didn't really have a lot of knowledge of what was really going on everywhere. I wasn't even allowed to go in as much as half of the ship I was on. I was on a big ship that did cargo mission trade, and I wasn't even allowed to see half of it. And so there's a lot I don't know, and there's a lot of people that are come forward. There's a lot of info in my mind. I'm thinking, this is bullshit. This person just wants attention, or
Right.
They stole this. They hypnotized somebody that was real and they stole their info, or they're a hacker and they're hacking people that are real and they want to get attention or cobble together a career doing this, which ain't worth it. And so there's people out like, man, that's bullshit. And you can tell when someone's lying. Like, there's people that are very truthful about what happened to them, but they're liars just naturally. And so that kind of calls into question the motivation, right? But it's not up to, because I know that if I go around and start saying that publicly, like, this guy's crap, this guy, this one, I don't believe this, then it's all going to just come right back at me. They're all going to be ego drivenly and just attack. And I've sustained some very heavy personal attacks in the years, by talking like this. So I try to remain neutral and not call BS. But yeah, man, there's common denominators that after you experience it. It's kind of like people that were in Vietnam, guys that were in Vietnam together, and then you try to fake it and say you were in Vietnam too. They're going to smell it on you. And it's the same way with going through something like this, that you can feel it, that someone's being genuine. But I'm not the authority on it, and I don't want to paint myself as that. Like, I'm going to tell you guys who's right and who's wrong. Like, I like to offer my info, and hopefully it helps you in your search for the truth about other things that are hidden from us. And that's kind of all I got, But yeah, you can tell when some people are full of it.
Yeah. And the BS meter in this community just has to be up. And but you know what the problem with that is for me? Just like you said, I've seen crazy stuff. And when I talk about my experiences, which now I haven't experienced crazy, but I've seen some stuff that is completely outrageous. And to have that come out of my mouth, I realize how insane it sounds. All right. But that doesn't change the experience. It just doesn't. So when I speak about these things, all I ask is to give me the same respect that I give others. That's all. Just give me that. Just hear me out. My the blessing that I have in most cases, I've had people around me to experience this too as well, and it keeps me a little more grounded. That when you experience something by yourself, it's just a story. That's all it is. It's your crazy uncle that caught the fish, he was by himself and he threw it or whatever. Well, it becomes one of those stories. And that's one thing. But when you have people that are around you and I'm able to repeat it, all I ask for is just give me the same respect that I give others. Because why would I disbelieve somebody? At least hear them out and see if they can get to the end of the story without messing it up. Right? If you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, and you gotta almost live and die by that in this field. So the other thing is you got to also take into account that there's industrial grade alien advanced space age technology from ETs, memory wiping going on. So people are defeating it, getting their memories back or getting bits and pieces, and they're trying to connect the dots. And so it might sound, you go, that doesn't make any sense. They're connecting the dot, but the dots they're connecting are truthful. You get what I'm saying? They just don't have it all yet. It's a lifetime sentence to start remembering and actually internalize that you were abducted by extraterrestrials or by the government and put in a program and then put back with your memories deleted. Once you start to get those residual memories, it's a life sentence. You're always going to be struggling to remember more. And so I think a lot of testimonies sound really kooky because they've connected the dots. They don't have all the memories. They're trying to make it make sense. And they go, well, maybe that's exactly what happened over here. And they're not dishonest. They're mistaken. They're just not accurate. And that's what I see out of people that I think that like you said, that you would call BS on. I would call BS, but that's like some of the stuff they're saying is true. And they're just trying to make sense of it. It's without experiencing having a chunk of your life erased and then fighting to get those memories back daily. It's hard. You know what I mean? Like I give people that are experiencing that genuinely a wide berth. And so I'm just aware of that. And I think most people are so skeptical. If you hear this, a skeptical person, they want to just fight you tooth and nail about every little detail. And it's like, you have to give a witness that had their memory erased a little bit of leeway. Now, David Grush got up in Congress on the Hill and said some pretty amazing things. And I think a lot of us in the community were jumping up and down with joy. I was, that this stuff was being said in public in a setting like that, where, you're raising, your right hand and going through this. And Congress took it pretty well. And they asked, I think, the best questions that they could, given what they were being told. It was pretty crazy stuff. Do you see a time when somebody like yourself would get up and raise the right hand and swear that everything is the truth and get up in front of Congress and testify? I would. I was asked by a show if I would take a lie detector test. And I said, well, first, I don't believe in lie detectors. And everybody ever told me never take one. Every lawyer they said never take a lie detector test. But I would take it. Yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid of it, and I'm not deceptive, and but I would give my testimony. I don't think Congress, where they left off in that conversation, is ready for my testimony yet. I'll tell you this. Lie detectors, let me say this. I took one official lie detector test in my life for employment, right? And I lied through the entire thing. I did. Questions were coming up about, drugs or this or that. And I was just like, man, no. So anyway, I just thought, well, that's exactly. So I got the job, right? Not only did I get the job, but I asked my boss, I said, so that lie detector test, man, and this guy anyway, I don't want to get into detail. He goes, yeah, man, you passed with flying colors. He loved you. You said you were 100% honest. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not scared of that shit anymore. I'm telling you, man, it was probably 15 minutes, maybe a half hour long. I can't remember exactly, but it got to a point in the middle section of this where I lied on every single question, man, for probably 10 minutes. Every single one. And I passed. Didn't work. Right. So that's kind of my point with that. But I was asked by a show and they were like, and I tried to say that and they looked at me like, oh, you're lying. That's why. And I said, look, I'll take the test. I'll do it. I don't care. I'm not afraid of it. You know, I'm too stupid to be a good liar. I really am. I'm too scatterbrained. So, you know, I try to be truthful as I can about everything. And
Right.
I
I
had to
mean,
get old before I got my couth and started to keep my mouth shut about things that would hurt people.
right. Couth is a good word. Couth is a good word. I just felt that, and this is probably why I passed. My mind had said loudly to myself during this, they don't have any right to this information.
Mm.
And that's it. So no, that's personal, and it has nothing to do with anything, and that's it. And so that's probably why I was so relaxed and truthful, because I was being truthful. You don't have a right to this, and but it was crazy to me. It was crazy how, oh yeah, man, oh yeah. You are 100% truthful. Okay, all right,
The
whatever.
the David Grush testimony and where Congress is at now, and the actual they've disclosed the technology that can go to space. So they've watched these craft, and they've told us openly that these craft can go from the ocean into space in a minute and right back again. So most people kind of, that when the heaviness of that, or the reality of that, I think a lot of people haven't realized, because it renders science inert. Like our science, the scientists have been telling us it's impossible to go to another star, suddenly doesn't have an answer for these things that are on these videos for the energy output. And so it's a very profound statement that Congress and these people have swore it on under oath to say that. It's a big deal. So it's the dam breaking, literally the dam of secrecy beginning to crack. It's a major crack. But it's going to be a ways before they can admit that there's a Mars Colony Corporation, or a Ceres Colony Corporation, or a Luna Colony Corporation, which there are, and there have been for a long time. And there are literally a few million people living in our solar system in colonies that have been up there for 50, 60 years or more.
What is, and I want to get back to your first trip to the moon, but what if we continue with our privatization of space, certainly within our star system, and Elon does make it to Mars on a private trip to Mars, what are they going to find? What are they going to see? And we're talking about, potential 4K live streaming, on
on Mars, it depends on where they land. They might land in a hotbed of local indigenous life forms. They could discover life right on the spot, or they could land somewhere that's barren, and for miles in each direction there's literally nothing but sandy rocks, nothing of importance. So my guess is that they'll land in one of those spots, which they're already well aware where those are, and that'll be the place that they set up camp, and it'll look like they're all alone for a while, unless they plan on disclosure. I think we're going to have a disclosure before that. I really do.
Would we be the only life on Mars, or is there extraterrestrial life on Mars?
There's indigenous life on Mars. There's insectoids. There's plant life. There's things that live on Mars under the surface that survived since the planet became dormant. I guess what's the term for it losing its volcanism and being dormant, and the atmosphere being blown away. But there's life there. There are large insectoids that live inside Mars that we were dealing with when I was there.
And this is something that you saw yourself?
Yes.
And you had said earlier, I feel like I'm an attorney. You had said earlier, Mr. Rodrigues, you said earlier that you were just a cargo dude. So Were you a cargo dude on Mars?
No, that was the first program when they took. So like you said, let's go back to the moon.
Okay.
They took me there, and they gave me a bunch of surgeries back to back to back. So it was like they were putting stuff in me. The question of the air on Mars comes up. I think there was a lung implant, like a device that they put in your lung. But they gave me a bunch of surgeries. They were putting hardware in me, and they were training us to be support soldiers, put numbers on the battlefield against these insectoids versus they had what's the word? Space Marines. They had Marines that were heavily armed, very well equipped with armor that could turn color. Like they were very advanced, very expensive soldiers. They couldn't just crank these guys out. They were well trained and they were expensive. So they were trying to make a soldier that was a minimum that could support these guys and have numbers on the ground to match the insectoids. That was the program that I went into first. I was trained as a support soldier and I went to Mars and we were doing hiking missions and engaging these things. And they canceled it. They determined that the insectoids adapted to the strategy faster than they were supposed to. Like they had a
so the insectoids weren't our friends. They weren't happy to see us.
Yeah, right. Well, they're territorial, so they were fine with us being there, but not in their territory. They're very territorial, and there were things that they wanted to study within their territory. So they wanted to take territory from them to study art. I don't know, ancient artifacts, whatever, for whatever reason. And so they were trying to figure out a way to do it cheaper. They were trying to get soldiers, guys like me that were clones or just not minimal trained, minimally equipped for bait, if you will, to put bodies on the battlefield. So to have some value. And they pulled the program, and then they took me from there to an underground city, a city that's underground in Mars, and they retrained me. They gave me aptitude tests to see what I was good at, and they retrained me, and I was ship maintenance. And then they shipped me off to the Ceres Colony Corporation on the Ceres planetoid. And I worked in ship maintenance on a craft for about 8 years after that. It was Groundhog Day. It was boring. And then that craft got decommissioned, and they retrained me to be cargo engineer. My last 2 or 3 years up there, I was cargo engineer and had a life, I guess. That was the only time that I had any real freedom up there, when I got a paycheck. Sorry,
Well,
I must sound crazy to you guys.
No. I'm absorbing it to the best of my ability. When you arrived on the moon, did you know that you were on the moon?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So when we flew up, they had, remember, they don't do it so much anymore, but when you take a flight like from Detroit to Honolulu, the pilot used to call out like, hey, we're over Death Valley and the temperature is there. Like the pilot used to tell you when you were flying over landmarks back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s when you were flying. They might still do it.
But, look out your left window and you will see the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
It still happens from time to time. I fly every single week, and it's getting less and less personal.
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, that's what they did when we pulled up to the moon. So he said, on your right, there's a base here, and it's military. We're not going to that one. We're going to this next one. And it was built in so-and-so. He gave the spiel on the base. And so we were fully aware, and we went inside under it and came out, and it looked pretty run-of-the-mill. It was a building with court hallways and doors, like an office building. That's what it looked like. And then it got kind of tight in some spots, but they said it was based on the design of the Pentagon, that they saved money. They used the Pentagon schematics and then adapted them for that building because the Pentagon was made under to resist nuclear war. So that design, that architectural design, was easy to convert to a building that would be in a vacuum. So they
what about the obvious question? And I'm trying not to be cavalier. I'm not cracking a joke, but what about gravity? What about gravity? Because we've seen the videos, the alleged videos, of the Apollo missions and the effect of gravity or the lack of gravity strength that we have here on Earth because of the mass of the moon. What was gravity like?
Normal. So they have artificial gravity. They called it gravimatten. So the Germans up there, that gravimatten, it was a thick flooring that they pieced together that was artificial gravity. There were beings that came, like I'm talking about Ceres now. The moon everywhere had it. Mars. When we walked out on our missions, I would walk in the base. They'd open the doors in the airlock. We'd walk out, and then it would be light. Mars is like half the gravity of the Earth. The moon is like 1/6. But Ceres was even less. Ceres is a small planetoid, so it's a microgravity. And they had artwork. So like imagine going into a restaurant, and then there's a big glass case where there's things floating in there where they had the gravity turned off. They had artwork that was based like that. And there were beings that came from heavy gravity or low gravity areas, and they would wear a bracelet or a jewelry, and the floor would adjust to their gravity for them walking by. So you would feel it sometimes if a being, they tended to be tall and skinny, and the beings that came from heavy gravity planets tended to be short and stocky. But when a being walked by you from a lighter gravity, you could feel it. You could feel like a little residual, they're in a bubble of low gravity around them, and they would pass you on the street and you could feel it because the floor would adjust around them.
The interior. Okay, so when we look at Ridley Scott's version of these deep space interstellar ships, these were ships that, and now it's artistic license, but that have been out there for a very long time. And so they were leaking. You saw stuff dripping, it was used. And not because it was so massive, it wasn't spotlessly clean. Actually, it was the opposite of that, right? It was always in disrepair, and a lot of effort was constant every single day for the crew to keep the ship running, right? But like I said, things were leaking. You would see stuff dripping. There was more. What was the interior of the ships that you were on? What were they like?
The first one was a converted submarine. It was an old submarine that was converted into a spaceship. When I did ship maintenance, that's where I worked in the bottom decks of, it looked like a naval ship. It was industrial with pipes running everywhere, and we had to top off levels of fluids, and we cut valves that were faulty and re-welded new valves in it. We did a lot of that kind of work. It was like on a naval vessel, and it was filthy where we were. And then I couldn't tell. There was no window, and I couldn't tell if we were moving or not. We would get in the ship from the hangar and go, and that's what I said. It was Groundhog Day. It was hyper boring. It was like I was suicidal. I was so bored. That was such a terrible job. But later on, when that ship got decommissioned, it broke down more often, and they finally decommissioned it. Then I got onto a modern ship, and they had leased the chassis. The Ceres Colony Corporation leased the chassis of the ship from an ET species, and they had it in dock in the hangar bay, and they fitted it with human things like water fountains and bathrooms and little galleys. And they fitted it with human stuff, so they put plastic wall up, like plastic little wall coverings in the rear of the ship. The front of the ship was fancy, was plush, was good looking. It had thick glass in some wall that looked like it looked like a really high tech office building in the front of the ship. And when you got halfway to the midsection in the hallway going to the back, then it started to get more and more industrial looking. But when you talk about Ridley Scott and all the ships, so they were mostly smooth on the outside. Hollywood has always got these jagged edges, and the ships, all these squares are really super complicated. They were smooth. The ships were all smooth and stealthy. So for flying by other planets that they don't want to be discovered, there's rules about it, about making contact out there. So they stealth their ships. They're stealthy. They're designed. And the inside of them was not as complicated as Hollywood make. Hollywood's got lights everywhere and all the, what I mean? Like the glowy stuff. Ours was a pretty Spartan ship.
The description that you said of the first ship being naval and possibly a submarine, what was its propulsion system?
There were early on. So this is something that I've deduced recently in the last couple years, is that I think it was a catamaran. I think that there were two of them that they put together. They put them together, and they had tanks. There was they were nuclear powered, and there was a radioactive material. We had to constantly deal with a highly corrosive, acidic, like a radioactive acidic fluid that would eat the pipes up. And this stuff would circle around it, and they had to purge it. So when they were about to fly, we heard them purge. We heard the fluids kick on in the pipes. It's like we were aware of that, and so it was radioactive. And so we had areas. They were like, okay, now get out of this area. The computer would say you had to wait here while this purged, while this tank purges, and then we could go in that area and work again because they were juggling radioactive material. But that's all I know. Like I said, we were working on just individual systems, and it was mindless. It was like a software program. In the morning, it would say, I had a number. I didn't have a name. It said, number 576, you go to the tool crib and pull this tool and return. And I would go do that and say, you, number 581, you take this tool until there was 3 of us. And we would split up, and then it would say, when I returned, it was like, now go to this section. It would show me on the map, go to this section, take this cover off and open this up and check this level and then return. And I would come back and say, now input the data. I put it in. It gave me step-by-step instructions all day long. That was what we did. And surprisingly, the training was mostly about fire hazard, what to do if there was a fire or a spill or something. Like that was the real training I got, was emergency stuff. And using the tools and everything, the computer told you how to do everything.
What was the purpose of that? I'm going to call it the catamaran sub, right? What was the purpose of that? You've mentioned interstellar trade. Was that the mission of this particular craft?
Like I said, it was they put us in the lower decks. We were not. The crew would call down on a microphone and say, "Check this out." There was like an intercom system. There was only a few occasions that even somebody else came in the room with us. And so I had really not much. We flew around in the solar system. I know we went to the moon. It dropped us at the moon sometimes, and we went around the solar system. So I don't really know what that ship did. It wasn't until I went on the bigger ship that I got promoted, and I sat in on the mission briefings, and I knew our stops. And those last few years on that bigger ship was when I really had an idea what was going on.
Well, that's typical of the military, isn't it? An example, you want a classic example of this? When Napoleon went to Egypt, he took 50,000 troops with him, right? Multiple ships, transport ships, logistics ships, stuff with cannon on it and everything else, support vessels, troop transport, all of that. 50,000 troops. Okay. Nobody, and that includes the scientists that he had. He had 150 scientists and archaeologists and artists and so forth. Nobody except for the captains of the ships knew where they were going. Nobody. Wow. So there was 49,950 people on that, right, going to Egypt that didn't know they were going to Egypt. That's just what you do in the military. It happens all the time. You don't know what the mission is. You don't know where you're going. You'll find out when you get there. And that's what happened. Yeah. It
was a need to know.
Very typical. What were, if you know, what was traded?
Man, we traded everything. We took people. We took soldiers. There were dudes in like an armor. They were big armored units, and they would sit still. They were probably on. They didn't need to sleep. We filled up the cargo bay with them. We took massive 50-gallon drums, barrels. We took clothes, plants, coffee, missiles. We took everything. It didn't matter. We had a package. Like I said, we had a sample package that we kept in the lower bay that we would give, and it would show all the things. One of the profitable things that we traded most of the time that they were very excited when we got a deal was pharmaceuticals, believe it or not. Planting. So if you take a coffee plant, and here's how I had it explained to me and how I remember it. If you take a coffee plant from Earth and you take it to another planet that's got a very similar gravity and climate and everything, the same as Earth somewhere else, and you plant the coffee plant and it lives, in a few generations, it'll be a completely different coffee. It'll be a completely different chemical makeup because it'll adapt to the environment. So coffee from Earth was valuable because it was unique. So coffee from a different, we took pharmaceuticals from plant life in our local area or from other areas that we would import and make it into stuff. And that was a big part of the trade that we did. But they took everything. I remember we loaded army boots one time, like 10,000 pairs of army boots. We got at Diego Garcia and took it to Ceres, and we had a place out past the Kuiper Belt, a chunk of ice, a big ice world that they used as a warehouse. And we'd go out there and drop off stuff just to keep it in storage.
But couldn't they 3D print their own army boots?
Yeah, but it was easy.
What was so unique about something like that here?
You know why? Because it didn't cost them nothing. It didn't even have to take the time to print it. So they did have the ability to molecularly build things, but it takes time. And so it was easier just to tell because the Earth Colony Corporation does business and they have an account. So they could give the Earth Colony Corporation a math formula and have all the goods they want. So it was easier for them to just go pick them up that are made here where there's factories and gravity.
Okay. What were we trading for? What were we getting back?
So the mission was like, I always tell, it kind of gives me a kick. I get a kick out of saying this. Our mission was not to boldly go and seek out new life and new civilization. That was not the mission. When I got in to sit in on the mission briefings on the ship, when I was promoted to cargo engineer, they explained to me that in no uncertain terms that we could lie, cheat, and steal, and our mission was to get technology, period, under any means necessary, primarily with trade, but they would trade and get in. We lifted stuff from worlds, from ETs, from Reptile. One time we did a mission and we lifted. There was like an oil from this heavy gravity planet. It was an oil that was like 500 times more potent than Earth oil. And they wanted to get an idea of the chemical makeup, see if they could reproduce it. And the reptiles wouldn't give it to us. They didn't know them. It was like a secret sauce. And so we landed and acted like we were buying other stuff, and we pinched a couple barrels of it and got out of there. And so that's why the colonies are not on the surface. So they're not only hiding from us, finding them. Like if you look at the Dawn probe circled Ceres, it didn't see any buildings. It didn't see anything. And they're not hiding from Earth. They're hiding from the other ETs that they might piss off. And this is the way it is in space. So nature extends beyond the sky, and you're talking about trillions of worlds. If you piss off 1,000 of them by robbing them, they're not even going to find you. They're never, it's a big play. Especially if they're lesser technology. And that's why security, and that's why belonging, we hear about the Galactic Federation of Worlds or the Orion, these big groups. That's why belonging to a group is necessary to go through space. It's kind of like they gang up. So for security reasons.
Didn't we photograph city lights on Ceres?
We photographed a pile of salt. And thanks for teeing this up for me, Jimmy. This is one of my highlights of my career.
Well, those were amazing friggin' photographs, man.
So the bright spots in the Okada crater that when the Dawn probe was getting there into early 16, I believe, I could be wrong. When it was getting there, I was working with Dr. Sala from exopolitics.org, and he was researching me and pinging against other people. And he said, Tony, the NASA says that it's not, you said it's salt because it's a geyser. I remember that there's a geyser that goes off in that crater every 6 to 9 years or so. and the water goes up and then evaporates into space, and it snows salt back down, and that's the white spots, big meters deep of salt, like tons and tons of salt. And he said the original NASA determination was that it was sulfur and a cocktail of other things. And he said, "Do you want to retract your statement?" And I said, "No, absolutely not. If there's one thing I remember from my time up there was watching that geyser. It was one of the most beautiful things I saw. And I know it was salt. We had a conversation. We joked about it for weeks afterwards. We talked about the salt." And I said, "No, absolutely not. I will not retract I don't care what NASA says, they're wrong." And this was in 2016. August 10th, 2020, NASA finally released the finding, because Dawn probe was high orbit, and when it went to a lower orbit, it got a proper analysis. And sure enough, they confirmed it was briny salt. So that was one. I don't have a lot of evidence of the time and space. I have a ton of evidence in Earth I got a ton of evidence from Inyokern and Seattle and Peru. I found a lot of the things that I remembered that I shouldn't have known about. And, even the remote viewing, the projects, I don't have a ton of evidence from time and space. You know what I mean? Like, I can't go to Mars and be like, that's where that spot was. But so knowing the salt 4 years ahead of NASA is my biggest piece of evidence for my supporting that I was in space working as well. So
now, the ability to wipe memories doesn't seem to be perfect to me. It doesn't seem to be perfect science, because if it was, you wouldn't remember anything.
And most people have what's funny, to cover that, the first 30 minutes they never erased. The initial seeing an ET in my room, that first memory didn't get erased. I woke up wondering what the hell just happened, kind of thing. But what do you go with that? Where do you go with that as a 10-year-old boy? Are you going to tell somebody? You right? So that, there's pitfalls. What I've found is that people that were taken in the same time frame as me in the early 80s get a lot of their memories back. And people that were taken in the 90s or the mid 90s, they got better at erasing your memory. So they only get a little bits and pieces. So that seems to be the case, that they got better at it. And the memory process, when I remember what they were putting me through at the end, was like industrial grade hypnosis. So they were injecting me in like regions of the brain. They inject me with some chemical, and then I would watch a hypnosis thing, like in a booth. They put you in a booth, and it was like a hypnosis movie, and it would target that region of the brain, whatever that was, like names. They'd make you forget the names only. And then they do it again. You'd go to a different form of hypnosis, different chemical, and they would make you forget faces or three-dimensional things. And it was a process. It wasn't just one pill that they gave you a pill you forgot. So there was a process over there. They were hypnotizing me to voluntarily not remember. And a lot of people have problems in the beginning when they begin to get memories, and I certainly did. You get sleepy, or you get disinterested, or hungry, or depressed. You start to brush in, the memories start to come, and you go, whoa, man, I'm sure got sleepy all of a sudden. And so I started thinking about it in the morning, right when I woke up. There was a certain memory that I could remember the beginning of it, and I was like, what happened next? And I'd always get sleepy. And so I started thinking about it in the morning, and sure enough, I would get sleepy. Right? I'd get out of bed, get a coffee, and try to remember what happened next, and get sleepy again. It was the weirdest, damnedest thing. But people were asking me legitimate questions like, who cut your hair? What was the bathroom like? What did you brush your teeth with? And I didn't remember those things at first in the early years. You only remember the big events.
Sure.
And I was like, damn, if it's real, I should remember it. And it took me a while. And it was, sure enough, that was the trick, was thinking about it in the morning. What happened when I remembered the buzzer going off in the day in the barracks. If the buzzer would go off, I'd wake up, go shower. And I was like, when did I brush my teeth? And I would just start thinking about it, and it would make me sleepy. I would have all these weird things. But after about a month of it, thinking about putting my head to it every day, I went, oh God, they were disposable. We had little disposable toothbrushes that with clear plastic, you'd rip it and you'd brush your teeth and throw it away. And the memory came. And so I give that advice. I have a memory course that I have on my website for people. There were so many people that I dealt with in the beginning. I just made a video about it. I think it's like $40 or something. I don't even.
Well,
I don't
but
even
here is where I ask anybody to think about what I'm about to say. All right. Every day, brushing teeth is a very interesting thing to look at. Every day, when I cook dinner after the show, because I eat dinner after the show is done, right? That's my 5 p.m. to everybody else. And I go and I start cooking and I say to myself, okay, what did I have to eat today? I don't remember. What did I have to eat? Right. And I would stop and I have to stop and think. So don't sit here and tell me you remember everything of every day of your mundane ass life, because I don't.
right on.
Do I remember brushing my teeth today? I don't care. I did. It was the same as yesterday. Did anything stand out about me putting on my facial scrub today when I shaved? I did it yesterday.
That's right. The mundane does it.
Right. Is there anything that stands out? I'm going to tell you right now. I don't remember what I had to eat today.
Right.
I don't. I what did I have to? Oh, okay. All right. I had a salad. I just remember I had to think about it. Right. And so I ask that of anybody. I'm not saying that legitimizes your story, Tony. I'm not at all. Right. I'm listening and I love it. What I am saying is when somebody else comes at you or comes at me and says, okay, man, what did you have for breakfast when you were on that cruise to Alaska on Tuesday on the ship? What?
Right.
Are you kidding me right now? Did you take a shower on that cruise? I don't remember anything about that cruise.
But
so I'm not saying it backs up anything. What I'm saying is before somebody wants to get critical on the mundane details of things, stop and think about what you're asking. What did the ship smell like? Well, it sounds legit at first, but I can't tell you the interior smells of everything that I've ever done.
The things I say, you legitimately people, I always tell people, look, if you're not skeptical about what I'm saying, it'd be weird. So if everybody just believed me, if everybody believed everything I said and wasn't skeptical at all, that'd be weird. Right. So my problem is most skeptics just want to go straight to fighting and calling me names. They don't even want to talk about it. They don't, you know what I mean? Like they don't want to be friendly at all. I'm going to beat you up. I've had that. But conversely about the memory thing, one thing that I always try to help with people that are in the middle of recovering legitimate memories that are going through because that's a scary process. Once it begins, it doesn't stop. Conversely, you do remember the things that mattered. So what did you have for dinner on your 21st birthday? Right. So when you think about that, you were going out, probably most people were going out having a drink. And so you can kind of remember that day, or your 16th or your 18th. When you got your driver's license, was the first place you went when you had your car the first time? That was a long time ago, but it has a big emotional context, a big emotional anchor, a tag. It's got an emotional tag on it. And when you start to assign and look at the emotional feelings, so you were in space, there was ETs there. What was your emotion? I was scared shitless. Okay, well then, could you see the floor? What did the floor look like? I don't remember. Well, try to tell me was there a switch on the wall? Was there a doorknob? Was there some? And they go, wham, I don't know. And then you give them time, and they go, you know what? The floor had this checker pattern, and they, you know what I mean? Because the emotion. I said, well, key on the emotion. You were scared. What were you scared of? What, you know what I'm saying? Like, think about being scared, and then tell me what the floor looked like. And so when you look at emotional tags in these memories, it's a gate. You want to pry your way into them, and people do make progress when they really do the homework.
Yeah, memory's a funny thing. just today, I had a very strange experience. It has nothing to do with ET, but it has everything to do with an incredible memory and experience that I had. But I see a headline, and the headline today says that Juneau, Alaska, is about to get flooded from glacier runoff. Now, I was at that glacier. Okay. I went there 6 months ago, 8 months ago, not long. I was there. I couldn't remember the name of the glacier. Now, let me be clear. I'm talking about a giant, breathtaking, huge, ginormous glacier coming off the mountains and descending into the water. Okay. I couldn't remember the name of it. And I was there. So I started reading the article, and there it is, the Mendenhall Glacier. I was like, oh, that's right. Now, I was there, and I talked about it for a long time, the Mendenhall Glacier. But in the moment today, when I'm reading the head, I could not remember the name of the glacier. A friggin' glacier that you know what I mean? Like, how could you forget that? And I did. And I just stopped. I'm thinking, is it my old age? You know, what's going on here? Well, this stuff happens. Do I remember what I was wearing that day at the Mendenhall Glacier?
That's my question. What's the first thing you remember about the visit?
Drinking the water.
So there was an emotional.
Yeah,
you drank it. It was emotional. You were like,
I got
stoked.
down in the glacier water, and it was frigging ice cold, by the way, so you can imagine, right? And I scooped it up and drank it right out of, just right. And then I just splashed right. And the taste of the glacier water and the feeling and the ice coldness of it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary. Yeah. And that's, I don't remember really getting there. I kind of do. I don't remember leaving. I kind of do.
You worked
but
at
I
it.
remember. But yeah. But the drinking of it.
Yeah, you can't forget that because it was a highlight. You know, it was an emotional high. And so that's what we see when people get their memories back of an abduction. The emotional high point, the big spikes in emotional, those are the memories that come, and the rest they go, well, what happened? And when they get into the mundane parts of it, it doesn't make sense. Or we see people kind of stretch it as best they can. And so that's why, to a really skeptical, discernible researcher, you know, they look like a lot of things are gibberish when there's a lot of the real truths in there that people are trying to share. But again, such a foggy, distant memory, it's very difficult, you know.
Yeah.
What happened for me was researching it. All the memories came back at once. And then I had the unique situation of talking about it all the time. So after I went, it was about a year that I researched and worked with researchers. And then I started doing interviews and on YouTube and talking about it all the time. You go, oh yeah, that's right. Like me and you run into each other. Next time we see each other, I'm going to ask you about the glacier. And so the more you talk about it, the more the memories will come back.
We should do that. We should do that.
Sure.
I had somebody come up to me this past weekend. I was in Virginia hosting a conference, and I had somebody come up, a major person, researcher, right? Come up to me and say, Jimmy, that show that we did was my favorite. It was the best thing ever. And I went, oh, cool. And I'm thinking to myself, she was on the show? I was like, oh, crap. But, you know, I had to do the dance, And I go up to Michelle. I go, we did a show? She goes, yeah, man, it was great. Yeah, it's just like, oh man.
Hey, well, I'm going to tell you right now, if I bump into you and it's a year or two from now,
I won't
and
remember shit.
and
I
you
won't
don't remember
shit.
it, like I won't hold it against you, man. You can just tell me I don't remember, Tony. What's your name again? I'll be like, it's
Yeah,
me, Tony.
I know. It's really bad, and
I won't be
only
insulted.
here's, and I'll tell you why. And I'm not being facetious. Okay, every show kicks ass. All right.
Right.
So how much better does the show have to be to outshine what I did yesterday or the day before, 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 right? So that's one of the reasons why they're all fantastic for their own. And I get that question. So what was your favorite show? Oh man, what? The last one?
Yep.
You know, that's really the way to look at it. They're all great. So what would have to happen on a show? I remember a couple of bad shows.
Those
Right?
stand out, eh?
Yeah, those stand out.
Negative
Those stand
emotional
out.
memory.
There are, yes, exactly right, man. Exactly right. But the rest of it, all the shows are great. And yeah, when you get to this amount of storage space in my brain, yeah, it's difficult for me to now, but I can sit and think about it and go, oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. I do remember that show. But in the moment, no. And trust me, this was somebody that if I said their name out loud right now, everybody would go, what? You
don't
forgot
remember that?
I don't. Man, it was, I swear. But I've gotten really good at doing the dance, though. Yeah, man, that was a great show. I loved it. You know, and then, by the way, what a great conference, huh? You know, it's immediately what you do. Tony, where can everybody reach out to you, man?
So these days, I'm working on, I got a lot of irons in the fire, and everything I try to keep it on TonyRodrigues.com, so you can find me there. You can email me, and I have a Patreon. I teach remote viewing weekly in Zoom calls. We do remote viewing. It's amazing. It's based on the evidence that I dug up. And I was the first one, I think in my third book, Beyond Sight, to introduce remote viewing countermeasures publicly. The government had researched it, and there are declassified documents, but we actually did experiments and pulled off countermeasures to remote viewing. And that's in my third book. You can find all three of my books on my website. My Patreon is called Talks with Tony. I'm on Facebook and social media. You know, I'm not big on making a post every 5 minutes of my life of me having eaten a bag of Cheetos or something. Like a lot of social media is saturated because the algorithm needs you. But so I'm not super active. But on my Patreon is where I do most of my stuff. And then this year I got a few more conferences. I want to start dialing them back. I did too many. I was so bewildered and honored that people would ask me to come speak that I said yes to all of them for the last few years. And it was a lot of travel, and it really ate up my personal life quite a bit. So I'm dialing it back, but I got a few big ones coming up. The Galactic Spiritual Informers in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's got a huge, great lineup. I'm going to Dubai. I'm doing one in Sedona at the end of the month. Cosmic Awakening. So you can reach me there. I don't have those really updated on my website. I put those on my Facebook out, you know. But TonyRodrigues.com, if anybody wants to get a hold of me and tell me that you hated me, you hated my show, or you relate to what I talked about, either or. I don't mind talking to skeptical people, man. I really don't. I mind it when they're just instantly violent and there's not really a discussion going on. They just want to yell at you. And there's more like that than
Yeah, I get that. I totally understand it. But happy that this finally, happened again. And it's no exaggeration. This is 9 years in the making, man.
It's a great show. I've been a fan the whole time, Jimmy. You're a master at this, man. You're like, you were born for this. You're a master. I've been on a bunch of shows. You're high caliber, buddy.
I appreciate that, Tony, but right back at you. And I look forward to our next conversation too, as well. And we'll break bread out there once again. And
Right on.
let's do it. All right. Tony Rodrigues, everybody. Thank you so much, Tony. And
Thanks, everybody.
We have absolutely great conversation tonight. And again, I look forward to our next one. Be safe out there, Tony. I'll talk to you soon. Tony's links are below. Go visit his website. He is out there on social media too as well. So you can go and do all of that. And before I get out of here, I want to remind everybody what I am doing tomorrow night. Joanne DiMaggio is with us. And tomorrow night's show is called Soulmate or Cellmate. That is going to be a fun show. See, just like I said with Tony, how do you top tonight's show? Well, we do it with Joanne DiMaggio tomorrow night. And Tony, when we talk next year about this show, it was overshadowed by Soulmate or Cellmate. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Joanne DiMaggio, I'm going to thank Tony Rodrigues. All I've got now is go Backley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Backley Tappy.